Welcome to the Timely Topics Show, where we're bringing you all the buzz and banter of today's business conversations. Straight from our studios in downtown Hartford, with your hosts, Rory McGloin and Jennifer Matthew. Welcome to the fourth episode of Timely Topics. I'm your host, Rory McGloin, and I'm excited to be joined by my co-host, the woman in pink, Jen Matthew.
Hey, hey.
Our theme for this episode is success, and later we'll explore the concept in more detail, including how we define success, or maybe success really defines us. And as always, we'll round things off with our good idea or bad idea segment featuring our producer, Alex, and his mystery topic. Let's get started.
Here we are, episode 4. And I love the theme that we're talking about this time around, which is success. So I heard that you had a successful night last Monday night. You told a few jokes. A couple of people actually laughed. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah. So full disclosure, I lost my fantasy football league this year. And we had a penalty. And the penalty was that you would do stand-up for the number of minutes that you lost games. And
I think that's perfect for you, though, honestly.
You know, as somebody who helped to contribute to the idea creation, I thought it was funny. However, I will say, I did not intentionally or actively lose. I just thought, this would be funny for somebody else to torture, and instead it was me. So there I went up on stage to tell some jokes.
How did it go?
It was good. It was a lot of fun. Obviously, for anybody that relatively knows me, going on stage and speaking wouldn't really be the biggest fear. However, I will tell you, complete change of perspective going up in front of an audience with the intention of being funny. I think it's a lot easier to be funny when it's unexpected. Yeah. So if you're going up to be educational or informative or inspiring and then you crack a joke, it works. But going up and everybody's looking for you to be funny, that was a little scary.
I think it's the expectation. I certainly think when what you said, it's the unexpected excitement around when you drop a one-liner, but when you're standing there and everyone's like, what are you going to say? Is it going to be great?
Yeah, and I will say, though, when the whole thing was said and done, it was genuinely fun. It was therapeutic in a way. It was really cool to get up. I had a great support team, so a bunch of the folks from the Hartford GA came to support, and that was really nice to have some friendly faces. But at the same time, they were absolutely there to try and torture me and hope that it was going to be painful. But we had a lot of fun, and I will say, there is no worse feeling, though, that if you make a joke in an interpersonal situation or a group situation and it doesn't land, because not only are you, anxious about why it didn't land, you feel bad, and then sometimes you'll dig yourself even a deeper hole and you're trying to make more jokes. But I will say, ultimately, I thought it went pretty well. I really enjoyed it.
Do you want to tell us a few of those jokes?
I don't think any of the jokes are going to make today's show. However, I will say that there's always space in Timely Topics for us to talk about comedy and stand-up. So we always welcome those topics.
Yeah, and so speaking of comedy and stand-up, it's one of those things we talk about all the time, sharing our favorite comedians. And one of the very first things I ever said to you when I met you was that you reminded me a lot of Dane Cook. He's one of my favorite comedians, one of my first shows I ever went to. So how did that resonate with you when I said that?
Yeah, it was 10 years ago, and I loved it in the sense. Now, Dane's been on a bit of a journey here, so for some of our listeners, right, I'm not suggesting that I'm continuing to emulate Dane's style, but I actually can go all the way back to my early days. I was teaching public speaking as a 22-year-old at UConn, and I was trying to find some ground to work from, and at the time, big fan of Dane, like yourself. We've connected on that, and I was listening to the CDs on the way in to work, and what would happen was I think that resonated. Then I would go in and do a performance in front of the class, and I would have these little Dane kind of jokes, and it stuck, and people would say that to me. I then since have gone on to give that as a piece of advice for folks. If you're going to be a performer, it's if you're nervous or scared or worried, find somebody that you love and borrow some of their style until it becomes a piece of you, and then continue to borrow from the people around you.
Yeah, I like the idea of that stage persona, because sometimes we get up and we're so afraid of what it's going to look like when we go out on stage, what people are going to think about us. But almost if you wear a different hat, it's you're putting on a mask or you're putting on, a different outfit, you become this different person.
Yeah, and I think it makes it a little bit easier to be successful in a sense, because you're not worried about what it's going to do to you or where your individual persona is going. You have the stage persona. So I think it actually makes it a little bit easier to be good.
Yeah, and so speaking of being good, I heard you also got an award.
Yeah, so that was actually really cool. The folks that hosted, they were you got to stick around. We're going to give you the Comedian of the Night award. I don't know if it was in jest or they were actually trying to have their own joke with me, but getting any types of words of affirmation is definitely my love language, and having people appreciate something is something that I love, and so that really meant a lot to me. And again, I don't know if they were trying to be funny, but it is now proudly displayed on my refrigerator at home.
I'm sure the family loves that.
They do, right? They came home and they were like, "Oh, great! Just another thing that you've now got proudly displayed." So they're pretty much over it, I would say now.
So any other awards, anything else that you're hoping to win coming up in the near future?
Yeah, we'd love to keep the winning going for sure. It's a big time of year for us heading into the summer. As some folks know and listeners might know, Gaelic football season around the corner, so I play men's Gaelic football, but we have the ladies team going. The ladies actually lost the national championship last year, so we're going to go out and try to redeem ourselves. A lot of fun. The preparation, and we're going to talk about this later in the episode, like what is the commitment to being successful and what's the cost of being successful, and then how do you celebrate it? So, yeah, it's an exciting time of year. We're looking forward for the summertime to come around. What about you, Jen? Is like what's on your mind right now? I know that you've long been an individual athlete, right? You love to get out and run, and you do races. And it's a different type of competition. You got anything coming up anytime soon that you're going to compete in?
Yeah, not yet. I really want to get back into running road races and doing something really exciting. One of my friends, I just had a great dinner last night with a good friend, and she's running a half Ironman coming up. And she's turning 60 next year, and she's about to run. She wants to do a full Ironman. So shout out to Anna Marie. Amazing story. Her son is an ultra marathon runner, and like listening to the stories of success and triumph and overcoming the mental challenges. And we'll talk about this later in the episode, but it's just so inspiring. So I hope to get out there. I hope to do something exciting this summer, and I'll keep everyone informed.
Yeah, I think you need something, right? You've been kind of saying that. You're like, I need something. And you know what's interesting? I love our dynamic. You're kind of like an individual sports person.
Yeah,
I'm definitely
a
team sports person, and I love having that balance. But this podcast is definitely a team sport. So let's go ahead and kick it over to our producer, Alex, for this month's correspondence.
Yeah, Rory, we actually did receive a few questions and comments for this episode. So to start off, Raquel said, I saw your last episode where you discussed April Fool's pranks in the office. My supervisor put tape under my computer mouse. I thought I was going crazy. What's the best prank you've ever done?
I definitely have never, I don't think ever conducted a prank in my life, just to be clear, Raquel, but thank you for sending that in.
That actually surprises me. But also, same, I'm definitely on the receiving end of pranks, probably more than I ever have given them or done them. So I'm going to do a shout out to my first ever job out of my first master's degree. Springfield College, Office of Admissions. It was such a great time because the entire team was so funny. Every day you didn't know what to expect. It's like almost you became so paranoid walking around the office, like you didn't know what you were going to walk into. I am a little superstitious and absolutely terrified of opening an umbrella inside, petrified of it. And they knew that to the core. And one day came in and my entire office from top to bottom was filled with open umbrellas. I had no way of getting in. And I had no way, and certainly wasn't going to touch those umbrellas because I didn't want to have that many years of bad luck.
Right. How many years of bad luck is it? Do you know?
I have no
idea. Is it a lifetime?
Maybe.
You know, it's funny. It must have rubbed off on you because earlier this week, I went in to grab my backpack. And as I went to lift it, I almost threw my back out because it was much heavier than I expected it to be. Only to find out that my backpack had been stuffed to the brim with apples. Where do those apples come from, you might wonder? They were served at a lunch at an event they were hosting, and apparently nobody wanted them. They thought it'd be funny to stuff them in my backpack. But no worries, they've been brought home, and they will be enjoyed by the family.
Good. So maybe I lied a little bit. Maybe I do some pranks.
I think you do. I think it rubbed off on you a little bit. So thanks for the apples.
You're welcome. Enjoy.
Yeah, so we have a comment from Janine. She said, thanks for focusing on an episode of inspiration. For me, I get my inspiration from my daughters. I admire how self-assured they are. They make it easy to be a proud mama.
That's great, Janine, right? Really appreciate that.
Nice.
It kind of reminds me, so actually as we were preparing for the inspiration episode, Jen went around our table talk with the team and asked them what inspired them so we could get a little bit of a conversation. I ended up having to go last. And as I listened to everybody's answers, there were so many great answers. And for me, I actually thought a lot about Megan Murray. Like, you know, my daughter kind of inspires me to be the best version of me, so you can be like a great role model. So I totally relate to that, Janine, and thanks for sending that in. I appreciate it.
Yep, thank you. And lastly, we have Jamal who asked, I meditate with Calm app every day before bed. Have any other mindfulness or stress relief tips?
Yeah, and that's also a piece of what we talked about and thinking about what inspires us to be better. And I'm certainly into the meditation. I think just the unwinding before bed, and I think that's the piece of that Calm app that's really helpful is being able to take those 10 minutes to take a deep breath and disconnect But that, to me, it's finding a way to read, to unwind, get away from social media, away from my phone, away from screens, and allow myself to unwind at the end of the day. But I also do at the beginning of the day.
Do you have the discipline? I mean, are you able to completely say, okay, the phone's gone until a certain time? What do you have, like a set time or like a relative set time that you work with?
It depends on what's going on and if I'm preparing, because I do a lot of work right before I fall asleep. But I try to take at least 30 minutes, if not a full hour, where I'm not really looking or engaging in a screen before I fall asleep.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's really good. So if you've got any ideas for how else we can calm our bodies, let us know. I want to give a big shout out. We had the Hartford AI event there a couple weeks ago, and just wanted to say shout out to Michelle Cody and the entire CCI team. Awesome event, and so many amazing people. It was actually really cool for Jen and I, though, as we were standing and mingling at various parts of the events. Some folks came up to us and they said, hey, we've checked out the podcast and it was good, or we liked it, or we enjoyed it, or I'm looking forward to a future episode. So words of affirmation, certainly our love language. Keep it coming. We really appreciate it. If you see us out and about, say what's up, say hello. And as always, if you would like to send us some correspondence, please let us know. Collaboratory at @uconn.edu, or check us out on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and on Facebook, and we will be happy to receive your comments, thoughts, and ideas.
Guess what just happened?
No way, you're kidding me.
Hey, did you hear about...
Are you sure about that?
I can't believe they...
Really?
It's time for Timely Topics.
In this Timely Topics, we're discussing the many sides of success, both the good and the bad. Where does it come from? Who determines it? And what influence does it have on us as individuals and our future performances? Anyone that's worked hard at something, like starting a new business, knows that success can be a fickle thing, hard to predict, and even tougher to sustain. Do you have what it takes to be successful? Let's find out in this week's Timely Topics. The theme for this Timely Topics is success. In particular, we're going to talk about trying to define it, which is often the first thing that we do when we look at a concept. However, Jen, I sat down and I really struggled with this one.
So with all of the books, the podcasts, everything you listen to, you really couldn't define success?
No, I really struggled with it. I thought it was pretty hard.
Huh. Well, I thought it was actually kind of easy.
Well, I'm glad that success was easy for you to define while I struggled over here.
Yeah, so I'll invite you to the session this summer so you can listen in. So we have a summer accelerator that we run with our startups, and in that program, we help them really define what success means to them as an individual, but also to their business. And in that workshop, we go through the process of having them define success, and we go through the textbook definition, which is really this process of achieving or accomplishing something that was our ultimate aim or purpose. And I always strike that out and say it's actually that individual measure of those outcomes.
Yeah, and so that's where I struggled with it, right? So you sit down to define success and you're thinking about it, okay, it is going to be a measure of what I accomplish. However, when I sat down to actually write that, I thought about myself and said, Roy, do you really celebrate those successes? And the answer was no, because what happens is I set a goal and a mission, you have a plan in place, and when you accomplish the goal, you think, that's exactly what I set out to do. I don't know if that meets my threshold for success, which then led me to wonder, well, maybe it actually does have a lot to do with the external factors going on in your life.
Yeah. So I read this great book a few months ago, The Gap and the Gain by Dan Sullivan. Don't know if you've ever read it.
I haven't.
Okay, highly recommend it. So the book basically explains that we have these two different phenomenons that happen. So we look at what we've achieved as the gain and what we didn't achieve as that gap. So the gap and the gain. And what he's saying is we often focus more of our time on the gap. So what we wanted to achieve and the gap between where we actually landed, instead of celebrating that we actually made a ton of progress between where we started and where we ended up.
Yeah, and I totally appreciate that, because as I was thinking about this, right, what's the opposite of success? It's failure. And I think it's so easy for me to recognize areas where I could have been better, where I could have done more. And I certainly will highlight those and regard those as being maybe not failure per se, right, but opportunities for improvement. Yet not taking the time to look at the small successes, the small gains, if you will, and really take an opportunity to celebrate them. So what role then do we have to acknowledge that we play in our definition of success versus the roles that others in our life play in our definitions of our success?
Yeah, and I think we have to be really careful. And this is the big challenge with self-awareness, and we talk about this all the time, the importance of really understanding what you value and what's important to you, because all around us are others' measures of success. We see people driving the cars, that have the jobs, that have the certain type of family experience, vacations, all of those external things that are constantly telling us like what we need to aim to achieve versus looking inward and really figuring out what you want out of your life.
Yeah, and those are all like physical representations of success, but maybe there's a reason why they exist, because it's really hard otherwise to deal with the intangible measure of success, right? So if you set out a goal and you achieve it, theoretically that should be seen as successful, but we don't celebrate that. We might celebrate, though, the acquisition of a good or the opportunity to do something that was rather difficult to be a part of. For me, I would say this. I think the one time that I will feel personal success is when it's an unexpected accolade or an admiration, getting a piece of feedback that I didn't know I was going to receive from somebody who was a byproduct of a program, who had a chance to be a part of something that we've done together and said, that was really helpful. Like, you really took me to the next level. That feels successful. But for me, it's because I didn't know it was coming. If I know it's coming or I anticipate an outcome, it's quite hard for me to regard that as success. And I'm curious, what do you think about that, Jen? What do our listeners even think about that?
Yeah. One thing I really want to touch upon is this point of expectation, which I think gets us every time. So we have an expectation and we're basically setting ourselves up for failure. So it either goes as we wanted, which means there's no surprise, no excitement, or it doesn't go well. And then we're essentially then disappointed. So any way that we cut it, having an expectation about something is dangerous. I do think it's a way that we survive. We talk about like these innate things that reasons why humans do the things that we do. An expectation, you want to make sure that you're safe and that you have food and like, you know, those basic needs. But I think that kind of holds us back a bit.
Yeah, because without expectations, like, how do you move forward? And I think one of our biggest fears in life is to be disappointed.
Yeah.
And sometimes maybe one of the things holding us back from our own personal success is the fear of being disappointed. Yet we have moments in our life where others do regard us as being successful. Jen, you've been awarded a second time for a 40 under 40, right? Being acknowledged by your peers in the industry for the work that you do. Does that make you feel successful?
It certainly feels great to be acknowledged. It feels nice to have others in your network that maybe didn't know the work that you've done actually get a chance to learn a little bit more about your legacy, what you're leaving behind, what are the things that you're doing in this world that matter. So yes, it feels good, but you know, I've thought a lot about this, and I've actually read and listened to a lot of startup founders and people that have gained successes, whether it's an accolade, whether they've hit a certain dollar amount in revenue or have sold their company. They actually have what I would call a success hangover, where you hit this high and there's two options. You're going to keep going up and you have to figure out what the up is, or you're going to go down.
And that's tough. And it's tough because you're always striving to improve, right? Theoretically. Then you get acknowledged. It feels really good for a short amount of time. And then you have this giant hangover that's like, well, how do I recreate that again? Yeah. And it just feels really difficult. When I was preparing for the episode, I came across a quote that I really liked. And this might help you, Jen, right? With your success hangovers. It might help those of our listeners out there. What if we strive not to be a success, but instead strive to be of value? And one of the things that this also dawned on me was that for real, I do believe that maybe success has to come from some of those external resources. Because if we're simply striving to be of value, I don't know if we have the time or the ability or the affordance to look back and say, yeah, that was successful. Instead, could you look back and say, I was of value, and as a byproduct of that, others found success in my work?
I love that. But also, are you now our inspirational quote guru on the show?
That's right. And I've got one more for you.
Gosh.
Success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success. So I like this idea. If you love what you're doing, you'll be successful. And I do genuinely believe, and I hope for every person, that they find at least one point in their life where they find themselves offering value to the world and in return gaining happiness as to what they provide. It's not easy. It's not necessarily a right, because that cannot always be the case. But if it is a privilege that you experience in which you love what you're doing and you experience happiness as a byproduct of that, that for me probably is about as close to implicit success I think that you can get.
So I work with an executive coach and have for many years. And one of the things that he says is that we often give ourselves permission to be happy once we achieve that thing. So I can't yet be happy until I have this, and this, whether it's a new position, a certain revenue dollar amount, right, in our company, or this other thing, whatever it is that we're trying to achieve. And it just makes me think about how we celebrate success in our lives and with those around us.
I find it really difficult to celebrate individual success, but I love celebrating team success. I think one of the great things is when you bring a team together to accomplish a goal, it's really hard because each one of those individuals had a different set of values, a different set of experiences, different set of skills, and you had to work together to try to create something. So being on a team as a team sports person, right, I love when you can find small successes on a team because to celebrate that is so difficult. I was part of a program earlier in the week, and we were trying to help an organization move forward with a new set of values. There were 10 different executives in the room who brought a really different perspective as to what the values could be. We left with 3 particular core values, and I could tell it felt like we had moved mountains that day, because I think the more people you have involved to be able to achieve success becomes more difficult, but when you do, boy, it feels really good.
Do you have any words of wisdom or advice for any entrepreneur, anyone that's listening, that's thinking about how to redefine success and then how to maybe celebrate it in themselves or amongst their teams?
I mean, I really think that you have to find a way to celebrate the process itself. Like, you have to be genuinely committed, because Jim Collins would say, have a BHAG, right? Big hat, big, hairy, audacious goal. Had something that you think that you really want to achieve in the near future. But ultimately, if you're not into the process, like if you don't love showing up to work, if you don't like the people that you're around, then that's going to be difficult. So ultimately, like, I think that we can redefine success by redefining, in many ways, the people around us, right? Like, if you can think about the external influences on who you are, how you behave. You talked about the external things that sometimes represent success. And I think that, like, even what we surround ourselves by, so for today, it might be social media, but everything that is around you is going to influence what maybe your indicators of success are. If you don't like them or they don't feel good, then that's an indicator that maybe it's time to make some changes in those spaces. So I would say define success in regards to, like, what's around you, right? That's probably the best indicator of where you're at in your success journey.
Yeah, I read a really good quote lately that said the only thing that makes us different in 5 years is the books we read and the people we meet.
Yeah.
So it really truly is. It's how we surround ourselves with people and what we're learning in that process.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've enjoyed discussing this, but we realize that we're only, of course, scratching the surface on what success is all about. We'd love to hear some success stories from you. We would love to hear what your inspirations for success are. So send them in. And if you want to feature somebody on a future episode or show that has a great success story, please share it. Because what we realized today is that while we may struggle to celebrate our own successes, we certainly would be more than happy to celebrate yours. In this episode, Jen interviews the co-founders of Athletic Brewing, Bill Shufelt and John Walker. They created a non-alcoholic beer that can keep up with any active lifestyle, allowing you to enjoy some beers with friends and not be affected by it the next day. Launched in 2018, Athletic Brewing has completely revolutionized the non-alcoholic beer category, and now the #1 non-alcoholic beer brand. Its award-winning brews are available at more than 50,000 retailers and 25,000 venues nationwide. Athletic operates breweries here in Connecticut, where they were founded, and in California, and donates up to $2 million annually to protecting and restoring outdoor spaces across the globe via its 2 for the Trails program. With all of these amazing accolades, Jen just had to sit down with Bill and John to talk more about their story of success and how Athletic Brewing has taken over the industry.
All right. So the theme of this episode is success. And of course, we decided, like, who else better to have in with us than the masterminds behind what the Wall Street Journal calls America's hottest beer, Athletic Brewing. So Athletic Brewing is widely known throughout Connecticut and the U.S. for the innovative non-alcoholic beer, and got their start right here in Connecticut. So welcome to Timely Topics. Thank you, Bill and John, for joining us. We're so happy to have you. So excited to have you in the studio.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks. That's a high bar.
Yeah. No pressure. So tell us how Athletic Brewing got started. So the founder's story.
Yeah, really, I think the genesis was authentically in my life, but the brand has grown to encapsulate all of our teammates' lives, really. And but I was really just a normal, busy, modern, healthy adult living a performance-oriented lifestyle, and everything I was doing, I wanted to be fit, eat healthy, perform well at work, have mindful relationships, and be a great parent over time. And I also wanted to be very social, go to a lot of dinners, go to a lot of bars, restaurants, barbecues, weddings, bachelor parties, all that. And I couldn't have all that in the current framework of the world. The adult beverage world had not really adapted for the modern, busy, performance-oriented lifestyle. And a huge hole there was, why can I not just have great beverages? They were as good as the alcoholic beverages without the functional ingredient of alcohol. And so the idea was to kind of reinvent the way modern adults drink and bring a lot more people into the beer category. Like, no judgment on alcohol. Like, alcohol has had a place in the world for 5,000 years. We just want to bring options into the world.
And so how did you get started in all of this?
False advertisement. Bill had placed an ad and called it the most innovative sector in craft based in Connecticut. And I was really excited to come back to Connecticut and find a business partner of the future for me and my family. And it turned out it was actually the most innovative sector in craft. And when we got on the phone, he just said, please don't hang up, hear me out. It's non-alcoholic beer.
Hundreds of people had hung up at that point. There was a reason that it had been thinned out. John saw potential in something that literally hundreds of people had not seen. And we got to work as bootstrapped and from the ground up as you could possibly imagine. It was homebrewing on Gatorade jugs, filling brown bottles in his garage, and I was taking those to retailers all over New England. And we've had a lot of fun building from day one.
Yeah. At that point, were you learning how to brew, or were you staying more in the business side and letting John at his craft?
I thought I knew a lot about the beer and brewing world from like an academic standpoint and like reading the curriculum of brewing schools on my own. But I really didn't know that much. I developed a pretty thorough business plan, but even as we look back and laugh on those business plans, like John and I have just been on a constant learning adventure from day one. And really, John brought in all the brewing expertise, and I think we complement each other perfectly on what we bring to the table in this co-founding partnership. And that was really evident from super early.
Yeah. So can you give us an idea of the landscape when you were getting started? What did non-alcoholic beer, what did that category look like?
It had been, the category honestly did not look that different than it had during Prohibition. It was a lesser than, very stigmatized products, very macro, bland lagers, and nothing against the actual liquids in those cans. It just wasn't marketed as something that was aspirational, positive, and equivalent to alcohol. And we saw a huge opportunity to make product quality without any drop off there. And so the market was super sleepy, no product or marketing innovation. It wasn't talked about or discussed in the industry or anything. And that differed in a huge way so it was basically a rounding error to zero of a market that needed total reinvention. But every survey I did in business planning, upwards of like 55% of adults said they would drink great non-alcoholic beer with some frequency, and a high percentage said they would drink it very frequently. And there was a huge difference between industry and consumer needs, and we kind of stepped into that.
Yeah. So anything major change from those initial business plans? So we run an entrepreneurship center. We talk about business models and pivots all the time. Anything big you can think of?
I think our biggest was learning about manufacturing.
Yeah, and owning manufacturing throughout. We had once upon a time thought about contracting out in the world, and while that's great, we found that we absolutely loved the things that we did. And we love owning every single step of the process to ensure consistency and quality throughout the life of the product. And so we decided to build all of our own manufacturing, which was a slight change from plan.
And really expensive and really time consuming to have a good culture with expanding headcount that fast. And so we laid a lot of investment down on both coasts of the country, with a lot of that right here in Connecticut.
Yeah, that's great. And when you first launched, did you envision Athletic becoming what it is today?
I think so we did. Right from day one. I mean, John's been talking about the day when his kids turn 21 and you can open a menu and get like the choice between non-alcohol and alcohol is like an afterthought, really. But I think what we did underestimate in a big way was just how much investment and into the scale of growing a domestic manufacturing business entails. But that's been really fun at the same time, as John said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things that surprised me personally was the rate of adoption. And the fact that so many people actually needed and wanted this product in their life, and they wanted that release and that permission. And so the rate at which that happened shocked me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say North Star things like the place in the world, the change we want to have in society, the culture we want as a team and community, those things have always been really consistent. But the details and how to get there have been shocking and exciting.
Yeah. So I mentioned at the beginning, the theme of this episode is success. So how do you personally define success, and what has been your biggest success as a founder?
I think a lot of different ways. I mean, me and John really try to hit pause and like focus on the good things happening too, and taking the wins and sharing them with the team and celebrating as a team, because it can always be on to the next thing. Like an awesome thing can happen at 10 a.m. in the morning and you are just focused on 3 things that you can work on all day. But I think there's a number of metrics. I think it's the positive impact we're having on the world, like giving people moderate options, including a lot of people in great social experiences, and that enjoyment in life. So like bringing great products to the world. I think it's being a great employer. A big thing for me and John is like giving people great and challenging careers that they are excited to tell their friends and family about, and it fulfills them. And being a long-term employer is a big thing to us. And we employ probably well over 100 people in the state of Connecticut.
That's great.
And our teammates, not employees. But again, I think it's a mix of that impact on the world and being really proud of the company we're building.
What about you?
So yeah, I would just add to that. I think consistency goes through from product quality and shelf life all the way to consistent daily lives for our team. If everybody's running around all the time with their hair on fire, that's not a great, healthy consistency lifestyle. So I think that, to date, the team has done a phenomenal job making a culture and a lifestyle and a environment where we can all operate consistently and happily.
So with success, sometimes comes failure, right? Challenges, things along the way. Any major hiccups? I know you talked about manufacturing and funding as 2 areas, but anything really big that happened that stands out to you?
I think building with a long-term focus, so making sure that like everyone around the table has the same goals and time horizons and stuff. I often see in startups, especially where, maybe investors and board members have totally different goals and time horizons, and that never ends well. And in scaling a business where we are investing in the manufacturing, one of our most important things has been cash flow management and making sure we're ahead of those cycles with fundraising and like having a solid footing for our company. That's where I see a lot of companies get into trouble, is they think everything's going great and they just run into a brick wall at 100 miles an hour and don't even see it coming.
Yeah, one of the points where we didn't have failure, which is great and total testament to Bill's planning, was the runway we had to do research and development, and having that time frame before launch to get the product, get the quality, get the business right before you went out to market. And so we were thankfully prepared for that, but I could see that as a major hurdle for a lot of companies.
Yeah. And I heard one of the interviews that you've done in the past, where you talked about the experience of like piloting with the beer and trying different recipes and trying to get that flavor right. And then that aha moment you had when you hit like 20, 30 batches in and you said, wow, this is actually kind of good. Like we're actually making something here that people are going to like. So did you use that tactic? Like once you actually had the beer that tasted good, you brought that to investors, you brought that to partners. How did you kind of sell them, other than selling John, on all of this?
We should have, for sure. We did the very difficult task of raising an angel round without product in our hand for a category nobody cared to talk about, that had no revenue or anything. So we did about 120 investor meetings and found an incredible group of angels who were super excited to be on board. But that's worked out great. But yeah, I think that investment in early quality, like we brewed hundreds of batches on Gatorade jugs, and that gave us an opportunity to really get to know each other and talk about what we want the culture of the team to be and do those really long-term planning things.
So I love when companies really lean into their brand. And one of the things I've really appreciated about Athletic is you do that. You are sponsors of other athletic brands. And I was reading a little bit more about your sponsorship of the Ironman Global Series, and you just put out your second film, right, on a documentary on that. So can you talk more about those partnerships? If you want to talk specifically about the Ironman series, I would love to know more.
Yeah, I think everything in our brand has really just been authentic. We've never been one to go to focus groups and try to figure out like, where is the customer, what do they care about, and let us try to match to that. This is what we know in the world, or this is what we hear directly from our customers that we talk to all the time, all day, every day. And, we started the brand bootstrapped. Like John was running the breweries and I was out in the world and sampling at hundreds of races. And I paid the absolute minimum fee to be at Ironman races early on, in early days, anything from like local 5Ks to Ironman. And that partnership has grown into a really nice one. And through our brand, we've added a lot of surround sound too, of like storytelling around the brand too, where in this day and age, it's so important where the brand comes from an authentic place. You're not trying to guess with a focus group like what people want. It's got to be an actual need that you know exists. And then so with the brand Athletic, our goal has always been to be positive and aspirational for a category that never was any of that. So we want it to be really a point of pride. But then in people's journey with Athletic, we want it to be something you can peel back the onion year after year. And I want people who've been drinking hundreds, if not thousands of our beers 3 to 5 years into their journey with Athletic to find something out about our brand and be like, oh my goodness, I absolutely love that. And like then the connection gets deeper and deeper every year. And that's why we invest in communities all over the country, athletic partners all over the country, and like all different kinds of media to meet people where they're at. But when they do reach our brand, that it is so important for them to just find out how deep the brand actually is. And it's not, so many companies these days are just like hollow sales and marketing shells on top of contract manufacturing. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, I love that. The tie-in of authenticity, leaning into the brand and really like being what you say you are. And we talk about that a lot on the podcast and with those that we interviewed. So what's next for Athletic Brewing?
Still doing a lot of innovation in terms of styles and brews and quality, different formats, different flavors, and we're always experimenting on our pilot systems on both coasts. So a lot of product innovation. And then obviously we spend a lot of time in the manufacturing space trying to build out capacity and learn about, new innovation, ways to become more sustainable as we produce and grow and do it responsibly and, hopefully building more capacity in the future.
Yeah, we've done some really fun recent collaboration beers. John teamed up with Walker Hayes, the country music star, to release a classic pale, Fancy Like, which is the second release of that's coming up in the coming week, and that sweet and sour pack for the summer is super fun. Yeah. And I think as a brand, just doing a lot more of what we've been doing. We made over 200 Two for the Trails donations across the country last year, so like investing in outdoor access for generations to come. But generally just doing a lot more of what we're doing. We recently cracked into the top 10 of all craft brewers in the country.
Wow.
When we started, we were like the smallest of 8,000 craft brewers in the country. There's now 10,000 craft brewers in the country. So we're in the top 10 of craft beer, but we are thinking bigger. Like we want to really be an exciting growth area for the beer category in the future in a healthy, positive way and bring a lot of people into the craft beer community is incredible. And we think non-alcoholic craft beer is like one of the most exciting ways to bring people into that category.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, congratulations on the tremendous success. It's been fun to watch the journey. It's been fun to enjoy the beer and try the new flavors that are coming out. And I was telling John this before you got in that we absolutely want to do some sort of collaboration brew with you. So cool. Call UConn up when you're ready. So we do this thing at the end of all the interviews. They're rapid fire questions. You kind of just think off the top of your head and answer to them. Are you ready?
Are we answering the same ones?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so if you could change any law or rule, what would it be?
This has nothing to relate to brewing, but like a flat, easy text to understand.
Okay.
I spent 12 years in finance, and I have no idea how taxes work.
I think we need to eliminate the pickle bouncing law because my son won't stop talking about it.
Okay. Good. What's something you're not good at?
Brewing.
Public speaking.
Oh, okay. How do you want to be remembered?
It depends, family or outside world, but like family, I would say just very present and fun. Outside world, I think just by someone who helped build a business into something very positive. That my goal is for a lot of our employees to just look back at their time at Athletic and be like, that it was like the highlight of my life.
That's great.
Yeah, I go with present and helpful.
Nice. Well, thank you both so much. It was so great to meet you, to talk with you, hear about the journey. And we're just really, really thankful that there's a great beer out there that tastes as close as it possibly could to regular beer, but be accessible to those that maybe don't want to consume alcohol at least every single night during the week, but want to enjoy something nice and refreshing. So it's been a great ride. I can't wait to keep watching how it plays out.
Thank you. Well, we're excited to be here in Connecticut, and the state of
Yeah.
Connecticut has been awesome supporters as well. So I want to give them a shout out too. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Great conversation, Jen, and special thanks to Bill and John for coming into the studio and being a part of this episode.
Good idea?
Bad idea.
As we know, in the world of business, there are good ideas and then there's bad ideas. In this segment, Rory and Jen will debate the value of a specific idea. The theme for this episode is success. So with that in mind, I wanted to pose a topic that is close to that theme: performance-based compensation. So here's the question. When it comes to measuring success, especially as a small business owner, is it a good idea for compensation to be based on individual success? Or should all employees just receive a standard annual raise based on company success? What do you think?
Interesting topic. Thanks, Alex. Jen, you have a gut reaction to this one?
Yeah, so I think when you have a small business and you're an entrepreneur and you have a very small team, it's important to incentivize your team to help with your growth strategy. So if you have a small sales team and you want to give them some sort of bonus, offer them some sort of incentive to keep pushing them to meet that goal, I think that that's a great idea. I also think that there's ways that you can provide this incentive and this feedback to them throughout the course of the year rather than just one time annually at the end to kind of keep that momentum and that interest going. What do you think?
I like what you're saying. I'm going to take bad idea. I'm going to make a change, and I would like to see the performance be based on the organization. I want the compensation and any merit related to any increases in salaries to be related to how well the organization did, whether it be that quarter or that year. I think of the example from Southwest many years ago. They wanted to improve their on-time departure rate. And so they basically said, if we get planes out on time, everybody gets the bonus. And really what that does is make sure that the person at the front desk, the people on the ground, the baggage handlers, the pilots, like everybody's doing their job and they're all working really hard together to make sure that they hit that bonus. I like the team element of it. We talked a lot about the team today in the success episode. So I want organization-based performance increases. Thanks, Alex. That's our show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Please be sure to share it with your friends or drop us an idea for a future episode, topic, or guest.
And don't forget, we are producing our show right here in the Collaboratory studio at CCEI in the heart of downtown Hartford.
I'd like to wish a big congratulations to all of our college graduates. On behalf of the entire CCI team, we want to wish a special congratulations to our 2 UConn grads. Best wishes down the road to Jude Yee and Aaron Ram as our assistant producers. We are definitely going to miss you guys in the fall as you head off with your professional careers.
And May 18th is National Employee Health and Fitness Day. So, Rory, does that mean you're going to come out and we're going to train for that marathon?
Absolutely not. But until next time, we are wishing you good luck in all of your endeavors.